Well, now, if your salary is between the bracket of 40,000 all the way to 60,000, guess what should not be found within the vocabularies of what the things to do? A car. Yeah, I know and I'm ready for your dissenting views and objectives and what kind of thing. But we have to speak the way it is. We say we hold the bull by its horn. And this is what I'm supposed to understand. Getting yourself into buying a car, there is nothing wrong. Personally, I love a car. I would love you get the biggest and the best car that you can ever get. But the point is this, are you able to have that car? And people usually tend to think like owning a car is the biggest hurdle. No, servicing it, having it, maintaining it, that is where a lot of things come in. For example, in Kenya, you have to pay a license, I think it's around 5% or 4.5% of the value of that car. Let's say you try as much as you can, you buy a car worth 1.5 million. What is 4% of 5% of 1.5 million? That's a couple of money, like 40,000, 50 or something of sort. That's per year. And then of course you can actually draw that up to the monthly income. Then there is fueling, there is other services, there is maintenance, there is other, you get what I'm saying? Now, the point is this, if your salary is ranging between the 40 to 60K, and I know, you know why I'm saying this? A client called me and told me, hey, you know what, Joseph, I earn 40 to 60,000. I would like to own a car. You know what? In my family, nobody has ever owned a car. I would love to be the first one. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. But now the issue is this, I'm saying, okay, 40 to 60 is not a huge chunk of cash, especially in these times and this economy time that you're living in, whereby you find the cost of living is skyrocketing, the fueling is skyrocketing, like everything. And by the way, I thought it's only Kenyans who are complaining about the cost of living. Globally, I don't know what exactly is going on. Okay, now the point is this, you know, the person was arguing from the point of, you know what, I'm only responsible for myself, you know, I don't have any other bills, I'm single, I live by myself, so why don't I grab that car? And I don't know why or what people, unless, before I even continue, unless you want to buy a car for the investment purposes. For example, say you want to buy a car, maybe you want to buy yourself like a Suzuki something, you want to buy yourself a Vito, that a small car that you want to do a you know, Uber business and what have you. That's totally a different case. That's a different case. Okay, you can go to that direction, because that is not really, is not more of a liability, it's actually an asset that is helping to make more money. But if you just want to buy a car on the basis of, hey, you know what, I just want to have the car, you know, blah blah blah, you know, those kind of things, this is not that amount of money that you should be thinking about this. If you found your salary within this bracket, this is basically, you're slightly below. For example, this is what we say in Kenya, there is something called the the lower incomers, the middle incomers, and high net worth individuals. The lower mid incomers are people who earn a salary of 60,000 and below. 60,000 and below. And in that case, most of the Kenyans actually earn from 15,000 all the way to 60,000. If you earn above 48, no, not 40, it's at 40,000 and below. And then from the 48,000 and above, you are regarded as a middle income all the way to 250,000 thereabout. So if you're earning 40 to 60, you're just at the entry level of the middle incomers. You're regarded as an entry level of a middle income, because you earning 40 to 50 or 40 to 60, somebody earning 100 to 150K, that's what I'm talking about, 200 to 250, all these are different levels of middle incomers. This is the entry level. Okay, this is the entry level. You're basically starting. This one, you can say, hey, you know what, this is like a sort of a medium of the middle incomers at this particular level. And we usually say in Kenya, 2% of people, or 1 point something to 2% of people, are the ones who earn this amount of money. And the moment you clock the 200 to 250,000, this is really you being in quite a middle incomer here. This is where you are a middle incomer indeed. And you're actually, these are people who you find they're living a 60 or maybe 70,000, you know, houses. There are people who live in that crazy kind of lifestyle, you know, and they just want to throw parties all the time. They drive themselves the Audi A3 and all those funny and good cars and what have you. Listen, you cannot compete with this individual. You, all of you are in middle income, are in the middle. But yours is the entry level. This guy at two, let's say even the guy who is at 100 to 150,000 Kenyan shilling, this is a guy who can afford to buy a car worth, let's say, from Obviously, 400K all the way, let's say, to 1 million. This is a guy who can earn that amount of money. If you're earning 200,000 a month, you can afford a car worth like 1 million all the way to 1.5 million Kenyan shilling, okay? 1.5, or can even just throw like 2 million crazily out there, okay? These are the guys. Now, here you are with your entry level of 40 to 60,000. All right, and then you're interested to own this car, maybe worth 1.4. Maybe you're interested to own something, a car like give me a name, an example of a car, say a Demio or Honda Fit or those entry-level cars and what have you. There you are at your 40 to 60. You want to own a car that is being owned by somebody who is at 100 or the guy who is at 250 shillings and 250,000 Kenyan shillings. And what happens when you get yourself into that case scenario? You gonna press, or what you gonna constrict what we call the savings, your investment. What you're supposed to focus on is how you can elevate the 60, at least to make an extra 20, bring it to 80, bring it to 100, bring it to something. At least that way you can speak the language. And I don't know why people say, hey, because I don't have much of the responsibilities, then the door is open for me to misuse the money. Doesn't go like that. I repeat, just because you don't have much of the responsibilities on top of you, that is the basic. It's like everything has been held or hold for you. Now you can be able to breathe. You can be able to do something. And you can imagine this. If you're Kenyan, can you imagine? It's not even Kenyan. Can you imagine today if somebody promises you gonna be paying your rent and are gonna be paying for your food? What can you actually do in this country? Or whatever the place that you live. If somebody decides from today henceforth, I'll be paying for your rent and I'll be giving you food, whatever you want to eat. Now you can do anything and everything you want. Now, if you start arguing like, hey, because I don't have much of responsibilities, now I can be able to buy a car. No, at that particular point, you're supposed to now build yourself, especially when you do not have most of the things that is affecting you in terms of the, you have to provide for this, you have to provide. That is the time you're supposed to bring yourself forward. You're supposed to make sure that you unleash your beast, you invest as long as you can, as much as you can. This is the time you speak the language of investment. Speak the language of money market fund, the bills, the bonds, the index fund, the what do you call them? The bond fund, the equity fund, the balance fund, all those kind of things and investments. That is the language that you're supposed to be speaking in this particular level. You're barely getting started by. Another thing for the 40 to 60,000, if you were to deduct the current expenditures here, the rent, the transport, and obviously the utilities, and obviously your clothing and what have you, whatever you are left with, I strongly believe if say you're earning 40,000, even if you don't have most of the responsibility, let's say you even save half of that amount of money, that is 20,000. That is what you're left with. If you channel this money in a period of 12 months times 20, you're going to get yourself 240,000, 240K. In 2 years, you have 480. And I'm assuming you have not yet invested this money, just a normal savings. If this money was thrown into a money market fund, 240,000, you get a similar amount of money. You could be getting around 270-ish K in a 270-ish K or thereabout in that particular year. Then this one is also subjected to another 10 or 13%, and then you get another fresh 240 multiplied. I'm telling you, you're speaking up very good. We're speaking above 1 million, above half a million, not a 1 million, above half a million in terms of what your savings. So if you can continuously sacrifice yourself or delay the gratification for the next 2, 3, 4 years, you can actually be able now to elevate your investments that is bringing you the cash flow or the savings that you have or the investments that you have. Now you can be able to speak the language of this. But rushing into acquisition of those cars, and one thing that thing is a liability, gets money out of your pocket. That's what the liability means. Asset is that what brings money or puts money in your pocket. So you need to understand those two nitty-gritties, those two differences, because some people tend to disregard the realities just to feed their ego, to feed their selfishness, to feed or to compete with other people out there. I'm not understanding we are on different missions. And when you're on different mission, you cannot do the same thing. Or similar thing. You have to focus on whatever is working for you. And when you focus on that, what is working for you, that way you can be able to know, hey, you know what? This is what is right for me. This is what is wrong for me. And this is what I'm going to pick as I move to the next level. So at all the time, this is that amount of money. If you ask me, and I gave a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I said, if you're focusing on buying yourself a car to put it on the road, that's when you're doing the business, be it either the Uber business or the Bolt business or the whatever the thing you're doing for transport thing, whatever, that is okay. That is an investment because you're looking forward from that car earning you some extra thing. But if you just want to buy that car just to Yeah, I know you might be the first, you want to be the first one to actually own a car, but at what expense? And you know what, the most discouraging thing, and by the way, never forget this, the moment you buy a car, you know, pull over from your floor, pull over to your friends, and they will be like, wow, 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 amazing. And that is over. They just know you own the car and it becomes norm to them and they forget about it. You go back to the stresses. And some of the people who usually go to buy a car with this amount of money, hardly do they have the savings. What they do is probably some little savings. Maybe they have like 300,000 somewhere, 300,000 somewhere where they have saved for quite a long time, you know, by maybe saving maybe a whole year or maybe a 1.5 years. And then there is these pages that you go and peruse and they tell you, hey, you know what, are you on salary of 40 to 60,000? Do you have what do you call, a deposit of 250,000? You can actually bring it that to us and then we'll be deducting 20,000 or 18,000 and then you can own your car and you pay for the next 48 months. There you are, it's a good deal. Boom, you jump into it. You give your 250,000, you have yourself a car and life is continuing. By the time you own that car in 4 years time, the car is no longer worth that amount of money. We have like 2, 3, 4 models that has come out. If you were to resell that car, obviously you cannot sell it at the amount that you acquired it. So there is nothing wrong with buying a car, but the amount of money that you spend or used to buy that car, that's where we draw the line. That's where you realize that you've actually paid an extra income or an extra cash to acquire that car. And if you were to liquidate that car, obviously it won't fetch you that amount of money that you've actually spent all that time in savings. How about use that 4 years, put that money in an investment where there is a constant returns of 14, 15%, or even 10, or even 10%, forget even above 15, or even 10% after the 4 years now. You can acquire that car effortlessly. You don't have to buy it at an extra cost, and you can be able to have the potential and the capacity to fuel, service it, and maintain that specific car. If you ask me, that's the point it will go. But at all the time, what I'm doing here is just information. I'm sharing that what I understand. The decision is yours. Know that what is working for you. Know that what is appropriate for you. But it's always good to make sure that you contact your financial advisor in whatever the decision that you're making, whatever you're investing, because we are on different missions. So appropriate work with that works for you. If you need any booklets of bio investments, my number is on the description of this specific video. If you need any services, grab that number as well, contact me, and we can have a discussion. For now, it's a goodbye.